growers, what's up? It's Lucas, and watering a vegetable garden can be a hassle. But did you know that you can actually water your entire garden throughout the season without ever having to fill up a watering can? Well, you can. And in today's video, I'm going to show you just how to do it. So last year, after finally having enough of watering the garden by hand, I decided to go all in with a drip irrigation system. And that is one of the best things you can do for a vegetable garden. Not only because it's less of a hassle having to carry that watering can around and water every plant by hand, but also because it allows you to water your plants very consistently. And sometimes, we as humans can be fairly inconsistent, and getting out there, once a week and watering each plant exactly the right amount is pretty difficult, especially in the busy world we live in today. Most people are working, they don't have time, they have to take care of their kids, their dog, themselves, whatever it may be. So this watering consistency is going to be so beneficial to your garden, especially for fruiting plants like peppers and tomatoes, because if you're not watering them consistently enough and they're not getting the water they need, you're not going to have those delicious, huge fruits. So my drip irrigation system all starts at the source, and this is a tap in my garage. You can see it's just a typical old tap, nothing fancy. So to get started with the system, I need to attach some things to the tap. So these things include a timer, a backflow preventer, a filter, and a pressure regulator. So these 4 components are all you really need at the tap to start off your irrigation system. So this may look a little complicated and confusing, what is this weird contraption I've got here? But in reality, it's a very simple setup, and I'm going to quickly explain what each individual component does. So first of all, I've got the timer, and this is just a relatively inexpensive irrigation timer I bought at Home Depot. I think it was about 20 bucks, it was on sale, and this is so that you can schedule your waterings. So say you want your plants to be watered every Saturday morning, you can easily do that with a timer. I don't have batteries in it right now because it's been in storage all winter, but I'm going to show you that later in this video, so stick around. Next up, we have the backflow preventer. Now this item goes after the timer, and the purpose of this is to prevent any contaminated water from getting back into the municipal water supply. So as far as operation goes, it's not completely necessary, but I highly recommend it just for that peace of mind that you're not getting contaminants into the water supply. Going forward here, I have a Y filter, and the purpose of this is just to catch any particles, any dirt or debris that is potentially flowing from the water source. That way I'm not going to have to worry about dirt getting into the drip emitters and clogging them up. So if you want to get access to the filter, it's really simple. You just twist this off, and there you have it. There's the filter, and you can pop it out, and you can see there's just this fine mesh, and that just catches any dirt that's flowing through the pipes. You can very easily rinse this off, but chances are there won't be much dirt in it anyway, so it's just kind of a good precaution to have. Last but not least, this is a pressure regulator. Now this is something that you're definitely going to want to implement in your irrigation system. What the purpose of this thing is it just gets the water down to a lower pressure, because at your tap, if you live in the city like me, you probably have fairly high pressure, probably around 50 psi, and that sort of pressure is going to just be too harsh on the emitters. So what you're going to want to do is get it down, and this thing does exactly that. So this one in particular gets the pressure down to about 30 psi, and that works great for my system. You can get different ones that will do different pressures, but for my system and for just a general vegetable garden, a fairly small garden, this is going to work perfectly fine. So once you have all your source components, you can simply screw them onto your tap, and it's as simple as that. So because I installed this system last year, you can see that all 4 of them were already screwed on together, but you can put them on one at a time when you're first installing your system, or you can just attach them all together and then put it on the hose bib. So once that's done, I'm just going to attach it to this 90-degree angle connector here. This is a Permalock fitting, which is a brand name. I'm not affiliated with this brand at all, but basically it's just kind of a plug-and-play method of connecting polypipe. And that's the awesome thing about this system, is that it's very simple to install. It's very intuitive, very easy. You don't have to be a genius or an engineer to figure this stuff out. So far we've got the valve and the source components. So this is 1/2-inch polytubing used to distribute water throughout the system. It comes up to this contraption here. This is simply a support device. I have it elbowing up here, and then it elbows off and goes through a hole in this wall. And can you guess where it ends up? It comes out of the brick, goes down. And you can't see it because it's buried underneath the ground here, but there's tubing that runs under the ground to this raised bed, and it also tees off and goes to that raised bed there. So before I built this system last year, I was debating whether I should use PVC pipe, which is that white pipe that plumbers use, or the poly tubing. And eventually I decided on a combination of the two. So the benefit of the poly tubing is that it's plug and play. It has all these different adapters, whereas the PVC pipe doesn't really. So the thing is, I wanted to bury the pipe underneath the ground because it's in my front yard. I want it to look good. And the problem with using polypipe for that is that it's compressible, right? So if I have this a foot underground, the soil on top is going to be putting pressure on it, and it might constrict that pipe and prevent water from flowing through it readily. So I decided to thread the underground portions of the polytubing through PVC pipe. And what this is going to do is act as armor and prevent that polytubing from getting compressed. So I've got tubing running up behind each raised bed, and I've got a shutoff valve here so I can turn the water on and off to each raised bed. So right now it's in the on position, which means water can flow through it. And then I have an elbow embedded in the top of the raised bed that's going to have a pipe going out and distributing water to this entire raised bed. So I've got my supplies here for the drip irrigation project, and it is a bit of an upfront investment. I think this cost me a little over $100. I can't remember the exact amount. And these pieces are made of fairly durable plastic, so they'll last for years. You can reuse them again and again, and you won't have to go out and buy new parts unless you plan on adding an addition onto your garden. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this 1/2 inch polytubing and I'm going to attach it to this elbow that's coming out of the raised bed here. So to use these adapters, it's very simple. First, you just screw them back like this, and that exposes the barb, and then just feed the tubing onto the barb. Now, if this is difficult to do, you can use hot water to soften up this plastic, but in this case, I don't think it's going to be necessary. Just wiggle it on there. Make sure it's a nice snug fit. And then you're going to want to screw this back over the barb, and that's going to lock it in place. This thing isn't going to go anywhere. It's going to be nice and solid, and it's not going to blow off when water's coming through it. It's going to be awesome. Next, you're going to need an end cap to cap off the line and pressurize the system. Take your polytubing and connect the fitting. So you can see here I've got the main line running through the center of this raised bed, and now it's time to staple it down. So securing the tubing in place is really simple. I just use these ground staples. They work really well. What I do is I take the ground staple, place it at the end, and just anchor down this tubing. I should have done this a lot sooner when the plants were still small, but I'm doing it now, and that's all that matters. Okay, so now that the mainline tubing has been run through the raised bed, it's time to put in the spaghetti tubing and the emitters. Let me show you how it's done. So what you're gonna need is a little punch, such as this one right here. And I'm just gonna pick a spot on this 1/2 inch tubing adjacent to these 2 tomato plants here and poke a hole. So you should hear a little pop like this, and then pull it out. And now get yourself some spaghetti tubing. This is called spaghetti tubing because it's just this really thin, flexible tubing. Then what I'm doing for this raised bed is I'm using a T connector. So this is a little 1/4 inch T barb here, and I've attached a length of spaghetti tubing onto each side of it. So then what I'm gonna do, real simple, is just pop this T into this hole here. This is sometimes a little tricky to do. It helps to just rock it back and forth a bit, and there we have it. Next, you're gonna need your emitters, and these are just the little things that disperse water onto your plants. So they come in some different styles. This one here is a shrubler style, and it kind of creates a little sprinkler. They put off 8 little streams of water, and they're adjustable so you can adjust the flow. I'm actually not a huge fan of this type of emitter because, first of all, it's not pressure regulated, meaning that if you have a long drip line, the one at the end of the line will put out less water than the one near the source. I've also found that I don't really like adjusting them. Sometimes they're inconsistent. For example, one might be putting out more water than the other, and to get them all exact is very difficult. It takes a lot of fine tuning, and it's not perfect. Another type of emitter I tried, and I think I actually like this one a bit better because it puts out a very specific amount of water. I think this one is 1 gallon per hour. This one requires 2 parts. So you got your emitter here, and then you've got this stake here. So you plug this emitter into the drip tubing, and then you have this little stake to just clip onto the drip tubing and hold it in place like that in the ground. So knowing exactly how much water these are putting out makes it very easy to calculate how long I need to have my drip irrigation system on for. Okay, so to get the system going, first you're going to want to turn on your tap, and obviously I didn't have that tight enough because this thing is squirting out water. What the heck? Okay, so I just took it off and retightened it, and now you can see that there's no leakage. It is all good. And now I'm going to manually initiate the irrigation system, so that's bypassing the timing setting. So all you do for that is you press this little water drop here, and no, that's not right. It's been a while since I've used this thing. Oh, there we go. And you can hear that water is now running through the system. Take this as an opportunity to check for leaks. Maybe a slight leakage here, but overall it's pretty good. So water's now flowing through the tap, through here, through the wall, out here, down here, under the ground, and then it goes up into this raised bed. And so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna unscrew this cap at the end, and water is gonna come out. And that's just gonna flush the lines out so that no dirt or debris that has been resting in these pipes will get into the drip emitters and cause them to clog up throughout the season. So this is just good maintenance, good practice. You don't necessarily have to do this, but I highly recommend it. Okay, well, no water is flowing through this pipe right now. Okay, so I'm not really sure what happened there, but anyway, I got it figured out now. It's going to be going for 5 minutes, and you can see there's just a good stream of water coming out. It looks nice and clean, everything's flushed out. So now it'll be okay to shut off the water and put emitters into this pipe here. And you can see we've got a leak here. If you poke a hole in the wrong spot on the tubing, you can fix it using these things called goof plugs. If you're a goof like me and you mess up sometimes, then these things are going to be your best friend. They're just these little plastic pieces that you can use to plug unwanted holes in your mainline tubing. So these are not only just important for mess ups, but also if you're changing the configuration of your system, you're going to need to plug those old holes. So I finished installing the drip irrigation system on my beefsteak tomato raised bed, but not that one over there. And the reason is those plants were just too big, too bushy, and you can see that because of this, it would be virtually impossible to lay down the tubing. I can make a bunch of excuses as to why it took me so long to get my irrigation system in this year, but the fact of the matter is it was just purely procrastination. So yeah, I messed up. But let this be a lesson that you should always install your irrigation system when you plant your garden. Don't wait, don't put it off. So I programmed the timer to water my garden automatically, and I have it going every 2 days at 7 a.m. for 15 minutes. So you can see here it says next start time is 7 a.m. So tomorrow morning, this system is gonna water my garden when I'm still sleeping. How cool is that? I've calculated it so that each tomato plant is gonna get 1.5 gallons of water per week, which is the recommendation from most sources. So I'm just gonna manually override the system now to show you how it works. So I press this water drop button and it says manual for 2 minutes. And you can see the emitters are at work. They're like little employees watering my plants for me so I don't have to. This type of system with the poly tubing works great, but it's not without its flaws. One of the flaws is that sometimes you get a bit of leakage here. You can see we don't have a watertight seal where this spaghetti tubing is coming out of the main line, and we're getting a bit of a pool of water here, but the vast majority of the system is leak-free and it will still save you a ton of water. I did mention before that the system is plug and play, and that is true. However, it can be fairly difficult to snap in the little pieces sometimes, and that's another big drawback to this particular type of system. If your fingers aren't very strong, it can be difficult to pop in the little connector pieces, but there are little tools you can buy for this to make your life easier. So let's say you've got your drip irrigation system set to be automatically delivering water to your garden. However, you got rain in the forecast and you don't want your system to be going on when it's raining because that just doesn't make any sense and you're going to overwater your garden. So then what do you do? In that event, you have multiple options. You can simply turn off the water at the tap, or you can unplug the batteries in the back of the timer to disable it. But the best thing you can do is use the rain delay mode on your timer if it has it. So you can see on this particular timer, it says for rain delay, press plus. So obviously each timer is going to be different. Your timer is probably not going to be this one, but basically what you do in this case is you just press the plus like it says, and then it says delay, and you can change the number of days that you're delaying it for, or you can also have it going for a 12-hour delay in this particular timer. So I may be making this sound overly complicated and intimidating, but really it's very simple, and the average person could easily apply this to their garden, and in the end it's going to save you so much time and effort. Sure, it's a bit of upfront cost and work to put it in place, but once you have it set up, it's going to make your life so much easier. You won't have to be worrying about watering your plants, and your garden will basically just take care of itself. So while it is going to cost you a bit of money and effort up front, I think it's definitely worth it to put in an automatic irrigation system, even if you have a relatively small garden like mine. Fruits and vegetables are mostly water after all, so giving them a consistent supply is going to be very important to their success. And also, by giving them a consistent supply of moisture, you're going to alleviate some common problems, such as blossom end rot in tomatoes. And also another big one is cracking of fruits. So if you've ever seen a tomato that has a crack in it, it's pretty disappointing, and it can invite bacteria and disease into that fruit, which will spoil it and prevent you from being able to eat it. So avoiding these common things with consistent watering is just another great point to why you should definitely install an irrigation system. Well, that's it for today's video, guys. Hope you enjoyed and hope you have a great day, because guess what? It's always a great day to have a great day. And if you're not having a great day so far, then hopefully this video made your day just a little better. So have a good one. I'll see ya. My name's Lucas. I grow vegetables and I'm kind of weird, but that's okay.